Good evening, everyone, and welcome to AVPN's first South Asia Impact Capital Festival. I'm Patricia Matthias, head of the gender platform at AVPN, and I'm delighted to have you join us today. For those of you who do not know about AVPN, network of funders and resource providers with over 600 members across 32 markets. Our mission is to move more capital towards impact in Asia by providing social investors like yourselves opportunities to connect with key stakeholders across various sectors and markets, to learn from one another, and to find opportunities for action. We're also sharing highlights of our day live on Twitter, so don't forget to share your experience with us by using the hashtags AVPN South Asia 2021 and hashtag social impact. Throughout the month, this festival has put a spotlight on best practices and solutions that AVPN members are delivering across India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. They've addressed issues ranging from healthcare, livelihoods, climate action, and education, which are all of particular urgency for the sub-region today. A few housekeeping announcements before we move on to the program. To download any session resources, please click on the download icon on the agenda page beside the session title. Our partners have set up virtual booths with useful guides and resources, so please click on the Festival Partners tab to chat with the relevant partner representatives. To continue chatting with your speakers and fellow delegates in the session, please make full use of the messaging function or the event feed in the platform. And finally, please note that the session will be recorded and you will be able to access the recordings after the festival. So in this session, we will be discussing why investing in girls' education is not only important to achieve gender equality, but also for greater sustainable development. To start the session, I would like to introduce to you our moderator for the session, Manjula Singh, Director, Girl Capital at Children's Investment Fund Foundation. Manjula will be speaking with Safina Hussain, founder and chief executive at Educate Girls, and Sohini Bhattacharya, CEO, Breakthrough. Manjula, over to you.
Thank you, Pat. First of all, thank you very much to everyone attending today's session. My name is Manjula and I lead the work at Children's Investment Fund Foundation on Girl Capital. CIF is the world's largest philanthropy dedicated to children, and Girl Capital is a strategic pivot that we made in 2019 to promote girls' education, skills, and income generation. So before we dive into discussion with our panelists, I just want to let you know the format for today's session. We have about 25 minutes for the discussion and about 5 minutes at the end for the questions. Please do add comments and questions to the chat box, and the AVPN team will curate these to make sure that we cover them all. So just to set the context for today's session, female labor force participation has been a stubborn issue to tackle in many countries. India used to be just 26% before the pandemic. The most recent data suggests it went down to below 20%. McKinsey projects that advancing gender equality could add $13 trillion to the global GDP by 2030. UNICEF estimates 13 million girls out of school, of which 34 million are of primary school age. The results of this are broad and severe. Increased child marriage, teenage pregnancies, poor nutrition and health outcomes, social injustice, depressed economies, and I'm sure you all can add several more to the list. So what can we do about this? I want to introduce you to the concept of girl capital. We often think of development issues as one that needs to be addressed because of burden or compassion or justice. Today, I urge you to think of girls and women as an asset and supporting them as an investment. I'm sure many of you would like to know why. So the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, reports that better girls' education accounts for nearly half of all economic growth in OECD countries over the past 50 years. So do not think of this as charity. Think of it as astute investing. So we know that educating girls and empowering women in economy is essential to achieving sustainable development goals. Directly, goal 4, education, goal 5, gender equality, goal 8, employment, but also indirectly and significantly. Goal 1, ending poverty, goal 2, food security, goal 3, health, and goal 10, inequalities. So now it is easy to think that there are no silver bullets in the development. However, when one looks at the overwhelming evidence behind it and compelling business case supporting it, one is tempted to think that there might actually be one, and that's girls' education. So it is to fire this silver bullet, and it is my pleasure to introduce the two fantastic panelists with me today. Sohini Bhattacharya, founder and CEO at Breakthrough, and Safina Hussain, the founder and CEO at Educate Girls. Both are remarkable leaders who happen to be women and who are doing amazing work to further the cause of gender equality. To start off, Safina and Sohini, both your organizations, Educate Girls and Breakthrough, have done tremendous work and achieved remarkable results. Would love to hear a little bit about your organization as well as your personal journeys as women leaders and change makers. What drives you? What message do you have for others today? Safina, would you like to go first?
Thanks, Manjula. Sure, I'm happy to go first. I started Educate Girls about 13 years ago. And very selfishly, I started it because education played a big role in my life. I grew up in Delhi. I grew up with a lot of poverty, violence, abuse. It was a terrible childhood that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But and then I dropped out of school. And really it was the support of people who had gone to college with my dad, like just friends, just other people who actually brought me back into college. And I became the first person in my family to go to London School of Economics, to go overseas for college, and it totally changed my life. So this work that I do is really an extension of my own personal journey, and what it did for me. It completely changed that girl who was growing up in Janta flats in Delhi to actually being able to have a voice and being able to achieve my potential. So that's what it is, and it was with that I started Educate Girls in 2007. So it's almost like 13 years now, and started with 50 schools, and today we are working in 18,000 villages across Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Uttar Pradesh, and in UP. That's where I am right now. And really, it's been an incredible journey. We've been able to support 750,000 out of school girls drop out or never enrolled, and help them find their way back into school, and then make sure that they're staying and learning. Currently, we have around 2,000 full-time employees and over 14,000 community volunteers, one at each village. And our goal by 2024. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Safina, we can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Safina. We can hear you. Okay, I think Safina's net connectivity is weak. So let's move to Sohini. Would you like to come in and share your personal journey?
Hi, Manjula, thanks. And maybe Safina, if you put off the video, you might have better connectivity. Hi, everyone. My name is Sohini, and sorry, I'm not the founder of Breakthrough, but I'm the CEO, and I became the CEO when the founder decided to step down in 2017. So a lot of, interesting lessons in leadership there, and including the founder stepping down, which is rare in the social entrepreneurship environment. So I was born and brought up in a middle-class family in Calcutta. My mother was a school teacher, my father in the lower ranks of a corporate organization. And we didn't have a lot of money, but we had education, and we had I had a mother who was constantly chirping on this thing that you have to stand on your own 2 feet. And I'm like, whose feet am I standing on, ma? But so that was the constant refrain I heard when I was growing up. And so when when I finished college and somebody offered me a short-time job, because I used to do theater, to come and work with women in the villages, I'm like, yeah, let me do it. It will give me 1,000 rupees a month 30 years ago. And I jumped at it. And when I met those women, their stories, the amazing struggles of everyday jugaad, the everyday kind of making things ends meet, the stories of violence, the stories of domestic violence, child sexual abuse, I was completely blown away by the resilience of the women, in spite of everything, their ability to laugh. And so I decided that instead of going abroad and, which I was planning to do, I would work with women and girls so that they can have the same voice and the same, the same opportunities and choices that I've had in life. So 30 years ago, that was my journey, and I've worked in many organizations. My concentration has always been women. With Breakthrough has been working for the last 20 years on gender norm change. Our focus is to create a breakthrough generation of young people who will make violence against women and girls unacceptable. We do this through a very deep transformation model, changing gender-based attitudes and behaviors across 5 states of India, reaching 500,000 adolescents and 3,000 young adults. Our media, which includes 360-degree campaigns, reaches millions of people across the country. And our scale up happens through government. Right now, we're talking to the Punjab government. In fact, we are just about to sign the MOU so that our gender equity curriculum is part of the classes 6, 7, and 8 syllabus of the government school system in Punjab. We have 140 people across 3 offices, and we are we're an organization very deeply steeped in values and culture, and that is one of the mainstay why we all enjoy coming to work. So that's about me and Breakthrough.
Wow, that's quite an inspiring journey, Sohini. Safina, sorry, we lost you a bit. You were talking about your organizational journey. So would you like to take it from here?
Yeah, no. All I was going to end with is saying, currently we're at 18,000 villages, and our goal is to bring back 1.5 million out of school girls by 2024. So I just want to leave us with the big hairy goal versus just the past.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Safina and Sohini. Those were very inspiring, and I'm quite moved with your personal journeys. So let's move on to the discussion. And so Sohini, there's a lot about, in the context of pandemic, a lot of priority you would see, and rightly so, on prevention, treatment, vaccination, and economic reconstruction. So why should world leaders add education, and that too girls' education, on top of the priority? What is the case for it?
Manjula, you yourself said that globally 13 million girls and young women might not return to school in 2021 due to the pandemic's economic impact alone. You can think of the devastating impact this will have on girls' futures and the far-reaching consequences in the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, including, as you said, poverty reduction, health, well-being, So I think a serious and specific attention is needed to ensure girls' continuity of learning and return to school and protect the gains that we have made in education in the recent decades. But I think it is also important for the well-being of the entire universe and the health of the entire universe if we see girls back in school. I don't need to really elaborate this. There are tons of research around that, but education is a prerequisite for prompting girls' agency and empowerment, which I think are one of the most important things in the scheme of things. Gender equality and education actually connected to each other in a loop. You cannot achieve one without the other. Without education, gender-based discrimination and violence will be rampant. And without gender equality, girls will not continue to get education, even if they are enrolled in schools. And education can be crucial to changing attitudes into accepting gender equality as a fundamental social value. We've seen this through our work with adolescents in the last 10 years. Just focus a little bit on SDG 5, which says which is more broadly aimed at achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls, and between targets 5.1 to eliminate all forms of discrimination and target 5 to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls. This addressing discriminatory social norms, attitudes, laws, and stereotypes, as well as acts of violence, cuts across all the SDGs. 4.5, eliminate gender disparity in education. 6.2, ensure women's access to adequate sanitation. 8.5, equal pay for work and equal value. I can go on and on. The truth is that violence against women and girls intersects with poverty, hunger, poor health, well-being, maternal death, poor education, climate change, energy, environmental burdens, and everything else. So as such, ending violence against women and girls cannot be separated from the actions that help tackle this issue. So while achieving SDG 5 would enable and accelerate progress in all SDGs, the evidence suggests that unless we end violence against women and girls globally, we won't achieve at least 11 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So we've been hearing a lot about Build Back Equal, globally Build Back Equal, which means putting gender equality at the heart of education, from teaching and learning environments, teacher training practice, education curricula, materials. Girls as agents of change is what we should be focusing on, because we need to systematically and meaningfully integrate them in consultations and decision making. And through this collective, intergenerational, sustained action and investments, we can truly transform education systems and build back equal.
Yeah, thank you. I really liked your framing, Sohini, that, gender equality and education being all encompassing, and that being the fundamental social value. That's quite empowering. Safina, would you like to add on to this?
Yes, I would. That was fantastic, though. And maybe I'll just pick on a couple of things to add on to it, because I think the SDGs and everything has really been covered very well by Sohini. And I'll touch on two things. One, we shouldn't have to make a strategic, political, economic, and social case for it, because it's her right. It is absolutely her right, and God damn it, we have to give it to her. Okay, we're not going to be begging. We're just going to be saying, give us what is her right. It's plain and simple. We just, so one is just that, and and yes, there are women are 50% of the damn constituency. We hold up half the sky. It is high time you see us. And you see us, and we are visible in your policies, and we are visible in the classroom. We are visible in the classroom management system. The APPI recently came up with research that teachers nod at male students so much more than they do at female students, right? And that builds her agency, thinking, I'm worth it too. Like, I am worth the attention. The regression in our textbooks, the content, everything that they're surrounded by. So I would say the strongest case for it is invest, because it is her right. But the second thing that I did want to kind of unpack a little bit, because I think it is important for us to build that alignment, is around the climate crisis, right? Because this is something that is going to, if I had to build a case for it, and I think the SDGs aside, I think with the climate crisis, if you look at the project drawdown that rated 80 actions to reverse global warming, girls' education was at number 6. At number 6, it was rated higher than solar panels and electric cars. That's how powerful the case for it is. And it's for, reducing emissions through the whole fertility argument. But even more importantly, this is the one I like, is from the resilience argument. Who's going to be at the forefront of the climate crisis? When water's running out, who's going to be the one walking furthest to find water for their families? When food is less, who's going to be the one, who will have to really deal with it for their children? And I think we really have to put women and girls at the forefront of the climate crisis, because by the time it hits, they will be our girls today are going to be at the front line tomorrow. And it is our job to equip her with everything, and with the right education, the quality education that will help her to, basically we are putting our future in her hands. She is going to save us if we invest in her today. The other piece on the climate crisis that really struck me when I heard, and I hope that leaders, who are going to meet in Glasgow for COP26, put girls' education as a strong pillar of what they're discussing. Because you know what? The whole solar panels and electrification and all the rest of it, that's going to go until 2030. What are you going to do beyond that? when you have to again half the emissions and again, kind of half the emissions? What are the other tools in your arsenal by that time? Nothing except education. Because what you will need is that in 10 years, you will need significant behavior change from the young people in how they consume, what they consume, right? And that mindset change, that behavior change will have to happen right now. So I think climate is one place where they seriously need to look at this particular, look at girl capital, look at women and girls, and specifically around education, if we have to fight that battle as well. So just wanted to add on to that. So apart from the SDGs, there's that very, very, very strong alignment that we need to build, and we need to be very explicit about building that alignment. We can't even have donors saying, no, now I'm funding climate, I'm not going to fund education. It's like they are so interconnected that they should be a part of that portfolio.
Yeah, thanks, Safina. And I like your framing again, that it's a right for girls, and also that, if you're looking at sustainable economies, you can't really miss out girls. So it has to be the center in front of everything that we do for long-term sustainable economies. So that's great. So Safina, how do you see the overall landscape of girls' education evolving over next to 5 to 10 years? And what do you see are the biggest investment gap that we need to fill to support girls in the coming decade for action?
Yeah, and this is a really important question. So what do I see happening? And I think what we need to bring to the table when we are talking about girls is, I think, becoming more targeted. Because sometimes I think we talk about really big, broad pieces, and then action is very diluted because it's not targeted to where we need to go. And so what I think is what really the big shift is the sort of targeting of getting to the most vulnerable girls fastest. So I'll give you an example of that. For example, in our work, we've been using data technology a lot. And what we have been over the past, our journey, and also because we go door to door and we knock on, we've knocked on over 5 million doors in the last, 3 to 4 years. So we have incredible data. What we've realized is that out of school girls are not spread uniformly across geographies, right? They exist in major hotspots. So for example, there was that 5% of villages in India have 40% of the out of school girls. Like, it's that kind of concentration. Now we need to bring data and technology and advanced analytics and this sort of predictive analytics to the problem. So we need to precision target and make sure that we're getting to the most vulnerable as fast as possible. And I think that's the big shift that I see that really needs to happen in the landscape. And I see it happening as well. I want to be able to have the ability to predict where is child marriage going to be worst, or which girl, maybe even bring it down to the individual girl, and to be able to intervene in this targeted kind of fashion. And for your bill payment, you have deeper technology than that. When we're scrolling through social media, there is heavy duty technology. And I think what I'm really hoping that the landscape will change is to bring the best data technology tools to fighting this particular problem, so that we can create impact faster, and we can really accelerate getting to that most vulnerable girl.
Yeah, thanks, Safina. Sohini, would you like to come in here?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to look at the problem from two aspects. One is girls completing secondary school and aspiring for higher education, and the reduction in incidences of child marriage. And both of these are underlined and enforced by social norms, which build value for girls, So there's a strong linkage between early marriage and education in India. 51% of girls without any education are married early, in comparison to just 4% who pursue higher education. I mean, you do the maths, right? Girls across the global south, including India, are born into a socio-cultural context which is steeped in discrimination and inequity because of the deep-rooted social norms. That pushes families and communities to accord them of very little value, not invest them in their education and marry them early. So many existing state and social policies have not made adequate progress on tackling these patriarchal norms that hinders the overall progress of girls. The burden of housework on girls as their mothers step out to work to substantiate the family income, underprivileged girls, the most vulnerable girl that Safina talked about, they are shouldering the burden of care and housework. In a report in 2019, the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights had said that 40% of 15 to 18-year-old girls were out of school, and among them, almost 65% were engaged in household work. And lastly, the end goal for our girls is marriage. That's the normative discussion. This has to be tackled on a war footing over the next few years if we are to build back anyway equal. So maybe three things, like work with communities at large with interventions which are focused on shifting social norms in favor of girls' access to education and higher education and sexual and reproductive health services and employment. These are critical. Unless these discriminatory norms are transformed, girls will continue to be at risk of dropping out from school and facing marriage, early marriage, and teenage pregnancy. They are also more vulnerable to domestic child work, risky, employment, poor sexual and reproductive health, and increased, violence and exploitation and sexual abuse. Shifting the beliefs of the adolescent girls and boys themselves so that education outcomes, the aspirations for employment, self-determination, mobility, all of this becomes normal, even desirable among young girls and boys, With our work in Haryana, we see that through the impact evaluation by JPAL, who continue to study the impact of our program across 14,000 adolescents over a 10-year period, that even 3 years after we have moved out of that area, girls who had aspirations have shown added interest by 4 percentage points in college education, and parents' aspirations and support for enrolling them for higher education has increased by 5%. This is huge. This makes us believe that interventions focused on gender equality works, that interventions focused on gender equality in government schools using, peer support groups like Girls and Boys Club that allow adolescents to discuss specific issues and challenges openly and form supportive relationships with peers and have intergeneration conversation with simultaneous norm-shifting interventions is working. The final thing is to work with the government to encourage them to incentivize girls' education, integrate gender equality curriculum in schools, and enforce the laws against child marriage. This is very, very important. And the fact that even if you create employment for girls, the norms that stop them from stepping out of the house and taking up work elsewhere is something that we really, really need to talk. And the culture around it has to be open for discussion.
So true. Actually, data, technology, and social norms. I'm seeing that it's certainly a complex and evolving landscape. And I agree that we need to do differently and urgently. And I think it's really good to see how you've called out, role of different actors and stakeholders in it. Safina, if I can come to you and, if you would like to talk about what do you see as different partners in the ecosystem doing more or differently, and what do you think it'll take to catalyze actors and actions, and how do we sustain these?
Yeah, no, I think Soini really covered the whole social norms piece and everything really, really well, and I completely agree with that. So I want to just add on to that. I think that girls' education, the problem, the root cause, if you did the root cause analysis, it's like 3 Ps: poverty, patriarchy, and policy. Right? Sometimes in policy, they're blind, it's gender blind and whatever. And otherwise it's like poverty. And that's why we're seeing the hotspots as well, that where these intersect, you have exponential number of out of school girls, right? So patriarchy you address, it's the social norms. It is this entire, mindset change and all the stakeholders that are involved in that mindset change. And that mindset change really comes obviously from the supply side, like whether it's your textbook and your classroom process, and then from the demand side at the community level, right? But I wanted to talk about a little bit, which is on the other, which is policy and poverty, right? So poverty is one, and they're kind of connected. I think as we tackle the patriarchy and the social norms, we have to, the solution for me would be convergence, right? What girls' education really to get to where it needs to get to needs is convergence. Convergence, inter and intra-ministerial convergence. So the water ministry, the WCD, the education ministry, we need convergence there to create the kind of a cushion for girls to be able to get to school, whether it's the availability of water. and all of those pieces, right? They add to that piece. So I think one thing we really need to not lose sight of is this convergence. And with this convergence is the poverty piece, which is access to social protection schemes. And I think it's very critical, very, very, the pandemic has shown us this, right? That you cannot talk about anything right now without social protection. So I think the social protection schemes, the rations, like even like just the portability of the ration card has made such a big difference to people. And we know that at the end of the day, our women and girls really pay the highest price of not having this. So many women I know that I meet, the ration card is held by the in-laws, even though they've thrown her out, or that they wanted to the husband to for dowry to get married again, so they have deleted her name from the ration card, and they have no access to food, nothing. Right. So I think we have to think about it in this sort of 360-degree way, whether it's social norms, tackling patriarchy, whether there is poverty being tackled, and then the convergence between the ministries to really generate, the sort of multiplier effect and the acceleration that we need for girls' education.
Thank you, Safina. That was quite clear and specific. I know that we are reaching to the end of this session, so I want to apologize to the audience that we won't be able to take the question answers. But please do reach out to Safina and Sohini or myself after the session to carry out any of the conversation. Send us a question, and I'm sure we will be happy to get back to you with our responses. I just wanted to conclude the session with 3 takeaways from today's very exciting panel discussion. So the first is that girls' education is very likely that one silver bullet, and I would like to add gender equality alongside that. That has both direct and indirect impact on the SDGs. And I heard Safina talking about that it's our right, it's girls' right, and also a fundamental social value. So there is a massive economic, political, and social benefits that will come from improving it. So let's prioritize girls' education. We have to think about scale, and we have to move with urgency. 132 million girls out of school is a terrible reflection of us as a society. If we want a sustainable economies, we need to start innovating and, through technology and also creative program design, amongst others. So let's act ambitiously and let's act fast on girls' education. And finally, the effort will require intensive and sustained programming and getting the message out there, starting from, communities to our dinner table conversations to every corridor of influence. So let's get out there through champions, media, stories, op-eds, voices from the community, and all our outreach options. So let's organize ourselves and around girls' education. Finally, I want to leave you with an African proverb that really inspires me. If you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. So thank you so very much to each one of you in the audience, panelists, organizers. Thank you for your time and thank you for your inputs. I hope we continue with this conversation, collaborate more, and of course, educate girls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was such a powerful session. Thank you so much, Manjula, Safina, and Sohini. With passionate and thoughtful women like you leading the movement, that change will definitely come. Thank you so much. We have now come to the end of the session discussing the positive impacts of investing in girls' education. This session is made possible with the kind support of our festival partners, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Sesame Workshop India, the Rockefeller Foundation, #COVID Action Collab, V&V Advisory Services, the British Asian Trust, WPP India CSR Foundation, Catalyst Management Services Private Limited, and Sattva. To continue chatting with your speakers and fellow delegates in this section, please make full use of the messaging and meeting function of our festival platform. And please do share your highlights of this session on social media. And remember to tag us using the hashtag AVPN South Asia 2021 and hashtag social impact. Up next, the session on impact investing in education, the new avenues. That will be starting at 5:45 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Thank you all, and please enjoy the rest of the festival.